Hello and welcome to a live deprogram with Keri Smith. I'm your host, Keri. Hope you had a great weekend. Didn't get to see you guys on Friday because I was baking pretty much all day for a bake sale on Saturday, which was a huge success. It's like a community bake sale, and the proceeds go to fund scholarships for the local high schoolers. So this was, I think we set a record. And yeah, so I missed you guys, but I made some delicious pasties from Montana, these Cornish pasties, and my husband made blueberry muffins, and I made a couple of sweet potato pies. I know um, some people, like my friend Josh Slocum at Disaffected, they don't like sweet potato pies because something's wrong with them. But sweet potato pies are the best. And what else? Trying to think what else I made. There was something else. Anyway, it was a great time. And this weekend, a friend asked, "Are you going to the No Kings thing?" And I had forgotten that it was happening even. But also I'm like, no, like I'm, you know, having fun out doing something useful in the community. It's like, why? I do want to go to these one day. I do want to go to one of these and just get some footage of insanity. But for this one, it was like, I don't feel like making the drive to Austin for these crazy people. Let's just do another episode looking at some of their antics. So today's episode is going to be just about some of the biggest delusions and hypocrisies that are common in the woke left cult. We're going to look at some of the things they believe and things they don't know about and things that they contradict themselves on. And I think this protest and some of the signs and some of the behavior that we saw there is very illustrative of this. So we're going to look at some of those things. If you missed it, I did an episode after the last No Kings protest that was all about the funding. And it was about specifically two of the billionaires who are funding a lot of this ridiculousness. Two of the billionaires, and then also the US aid money that's going to fund a lot of this, or was going to fund a lot of this. So go and check out that episode. It's about the billionaires who are funding these leftist protests. But today we're just going to look at their behaviors, some of their signs, and then talk a little bit about the extremist cult that is the modern day left. It's a cult that I left. I was in it for 20 years. I left it about 8 years ago. Many of you in the chat are familiar with it, and many of you were in it and have left it as well. Pretty much every liberal I know has left the left now. Like, I don't know a lot of classical liberals who are still in that belief system. There are a lot of people who are deluded, who think of themselves as liberals, but if you ask them what their beliefs are, or if you observe what their beliefs are based on the kind of stuff they say and do, you can quickly discern that they're not liberal. They're actually very illiberal because they support things like censorship, violence, authoritarianism, government control, and government force over individualism. So, and over liberty for sure. So yeah, most of the liberals I know have left, but there are a lot of well-intentioned people who are still in that cult. There's more of them waking up every day, but there are a lot of well-intentioned people who are there. Now, I know most of them at this point, I think, are not well-intentioned, but there are still those people who are there with good intent. I had a leftist say to me online, there's a lot of good people there, that people with good intent. I was like, I know, you don't have to tell me that. I believe that. I used to be one of those people who believed all that crap. I went to every leftist protest near me for decades. Like, I was a rabid, true believer in that ideology, and I thought it was liberalism and progressivism. And so I know there's a lot of brainwashed people in there. They may have in good intent, those people, but they are brainwashed, they are gullible, and they are a part of a cult that's using them as tools. So let's start with this. I made a meme. Occasionally I make memes, young people. They're not all, I'm not saying that they're great. I'm just saying I try to do meme making. This is one, it was a common sentiment. I saw it in other memes too. I saw a cartoon one afterwards. This one though, it's the therapist, it's the classic therapist meme, and it says, "Are the kings in the room with us right now?" She's comforting a woman who's crying. Are the kings here? Are they? Who are these kings you speak of? This one to me, I just think it's funny because one of the biggest delusions that they're operating under, and many of them seem to believe this, they're experiencing cognitive dissonance because on the one hand, they know we don't have a king, and they know, hey, if we had a king, you wouldn't be able to go out and protest like this. You'd be, if you were under tyranny, like they claim to be under some kind of tyranny, like you wouldn't get to go out and express yourself, and all of the news stations wouldn't fawn all over you, and the politicians on the left, and they know that we do not have a king. They know it because another example is they held these no kings, which is really just, let's call it what it is. It's an anti-Trump, anti-American, communist parade. That's what this is. But they held these in other countries as well. And for the countries that actually do have kings, they changed the name. They changed the name so that, to make sure that everybody knows they don't mean that they're actually against kings, like countries that have kings. They had to change the name, and they called it No Clowns Day protest. They put out a statement so people would know. Here we go. Let me share this. Here's their statement. So funny. This is one of these things where they give themselves away of what they actually know, right? Like they know we don't have kings. So they put out this statement, Democrats abroad. A few notes, it says. A few notes. We've changed the No Kings theme of other events around the world to No Tyrants. Oh, why would you do that? Oh, because those countries do have kings. So this whole, like, the kings that you're protesting are imaginary, not real. And so in countries that do have kings, you have to change the name. So they said, we've changed the No Kings theme of other events around the world to No Tyrants, so as not to mix messages in a country with kings, with a monarchy. This just cracked me up. We are also swapping out No Crowns, because that was one of their slogans and propaganda when they have all this money being funneled into this crap. This is the establishment who's putting these things on, right? So they have all these printed things that say No Crowns, and they say we're also swapping out No Crowns in favor of No Clowns. Come dressed as a Trump clown, Donald Trump himself, or one of his cronies. Think bad blonde wig, orange face, long red tie, or whatever gets your creative juices flowing. But remember, if it's in a country with kings, we're calling it No Tyrants. Okay. Yes, they beclowned themselves, says Davina. That's one of the funniest things I saw. The good thing about these commie parades is there's a lot of funny stuff where they are unintentionally hilarious, but also there's a lot of funny memes afterwards. Like for the people who are really good meme makers, not me, but there's really funny memes, and there's a lot of great trolling that happens afterwards. The best trolling is in art. The best trolling is comedy. Trump and JD Vance have been at like top tier trolling game lately. I don't know. It's pretty funny. So, hey, Bramable, what's up? He says, No Kings was just another protest organized by and for anti-Americans, pro-Hamas leftists, that was mostly populated by old people that miss their hippie past. That's a excellent description. Excellent description. So, I want to show you a couple of things from this protest and a couple of the responses, because I think then this will help us get into some of their delusions. So first of all, not only do they know we don't have a king, so the whole protest is kind of nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense. We don't have a king, and they know this. But the bigger thing that's just kind of baffling to those of us who are not in this woke cult anymore is that they have no introspection. And I think this is because they're so disconnected from reality. The longer you're in a cult, the more disconnected from reality you get over time. And they don't hear themselves. They don't hear themselves. They don't have any introspection. They constantly contradict themselves. They're the biggest hypocrites. We jokingly say if it weren't for double standards, they wouldn't have any standards at all. But it's true. They don't have any standards. They're not consistent. They don't even stick to their own cult rules. Like their cult rules are basically tools of manipulation, and they break them all the time, their own, beliefs. So here's one of the things I saw that's very true. And let me just read a statement, like a little bit of commentary that I posted with this. The commentary was from a friend of mine, and but her post wasn't public, so she said I could just copy what she had said, which I thought was really great. She said, most people have not forgotten what transpired over the last decade and are just laughing at the hypocrisy of the No Kings protests. If you don't understand that, then chances are you're easily manipulated, low information, and a willfully ignorant tribalist. No one is taking you seriously. No one. No one except your other cult members. I mean, you guys are all doing this for each other. You're all performing. It's performative and it's for each other, right? So I shared her comments with this graphic that was going around, and it sums it up very nicely. It says, "No kings. We're for no kings, but put your mask on. No kings, but lock us down. No kings, but I'm firing you for not vaccinating. No kings, but you can't go outside. No kings, but we don't accept your exemption. No kings, but you need 12,380 boosters. No kings, but we're shutting your business down. No kings, but you can't worship the real king. No kings, but your family members will die alone. No kings, but I'm opening a hotline so you can tattle on your neighbors. No kings, but mandates galore. No kings, but you're responsible for my health. No kings, but social distance at 6 feet apart. No kings, but no family gatherings over 10. The hypocrisy is astounding. Who is actually tyrannical here?" And I just thought that was a great summary of why we don't take you guys seriously if you're in that cult. I mean, there's many reasons, but this is one of the biggest, is you're just so disconnected from reality. And we just went through one of the most authoritarian periods our country has ever seen. And not only did you guys not protest against it with us, like not only did you not say anything about it, but you leftist goons, you were part of that authoritarian mob. You were cool with it. All of a sudden, all of your supposed beliefs went out the window. You were supposed to be anti-big pharma, but you became big pharma worshipers and started, tattooing Pfizer on your arms. You guys were supposed to be for free speech, but you celebrated and were demanding censorship of doctors and scientists who didn't agree with the authoritarian COVID policies. You guys were supposed to be for free expression of ideas, but you guys were happy when people were censored online, when scientific studies were taken down. You were cool with them calling us grandma killers. You guys are supposed to be, you claim to be for science. You put up those stupid signs in front of your houses, those virtue signaling signs, like Pharisees. In this house, we believe, and you say that you believe in science, but science is not a faith. It doesn't require your belief. It's not a religion. Science requires only transparency of methodology and reproducible results. And you guys turns out, you don't actually care about science. You didn't read any of the studies about the efficacy of masks. You lined up to take an experimental shot that wasn't even a vaccine. You lined up to take it, and then and it was experimental, by the way. That, again, if you don't think that, then you don't know much about science. There wasn't time enough for a longitudinal study. There hasn't been enough time for longitudinal studies. So it was, by its very definition, it was in an experimental state. And you guys lined up to take this and tried to shame and bully people who weighed their options, did a cost benefit analysis of taking it, looked at their specific situation and any comorbidities they might have, and then decided not to take it. You bullied them and shamed them. You cheered when people were fired. You cheered when late night comedians said that the people who didn't get the vax shouldn't be able to go to the hospital if they needed care for something. You cheered when people died of COVID. Like, you did really disgusting things. You were fully on board with this authoritarianism. You were fully on board. I interviewed a grandma who was thrown in jail for simply opening her small business, her coffee shop. You were cool with that authoritarianism. You were cool with jackbooted thugs. That's what you call officers now. But back then you were cool with it. You were cool when they went and arrested grandmas for trying to keep their business afloat, for weighing the options, the risk benefit analysis, and properly deciding. Everyone's an adult. They can decide if they want to come into my coffee shop or not. They're not forced to come into my coffee shop. They can weigh the risk. You were cool with her being jailed, and lots of people like her. You were cool with all the small business owners who lost their businesses while the large corporations were allowed to stay open. You were okay with it when a bunch of doctors who've been captured, who were in your cult, who were in the woke belief system, issued a statement saying, yeah, we know that we told you guys it's not safe for you to gather with your family at holidays, and you shouldn't be able to operate your business or go to work, and you have to stay home. But it's okay to break all those rules to go and join a BLM riot and protest. They actually did this. They put out a statement saying this, and you guys didn't care. You couldn't see the craziness then, that they were saying it's okay to go out to a BLM protest with all these people without social distancing. Because what was their justification? They said racism is also a health crisis. So it's okay. Not running your coffee shop, though. Not gathering with friends and family. You were cool with all of this. Your supposed high-minded beliefs about my body, my choice. You're always saying that when it comes to killing babies in the womb, my body, my choice. Well, that went right out the window, because suddenly you were in favor of forced masking of children. You were in favor of vaccine mandates. You were in favor of mask mandates. You don't believe in my body, my choice. You're liars. You're just pro-abortion. Why don't you just say that? That's what you are. You're just pro-abortion. You're absolute hypocrites. You're not consistent. You are the authoritarian jackbooted thugs. That's what you are. This is why we don't take you seriously. You were okay with them forced masking children, which, if you looked at the science, which we know you didn't, children were the least likely to have complications or problems resulting from contracting COVID, and you still were supporting forced masking, which, you know what happened? The CDC had to put out a statement. The CDC put out a statement saying that they're pushing back children's developmental milestones for the first time ever, and that children are now learning to read, speech development, and all these things are coming later than they used to. You contributed to all these developmental delays in kids because they couldn't see people's mouths when they're talking, which is a big part of learning how to speak. They have speech impediments now. They're not reading as early as they used to. All of these problems. This was a great evil, which you supported, because you're okay with tyranny. You're fine with it. When we actually experienced it, you guys were either cowards who said nothing, or worse, you were part of the authoritarianism. You were part of calling up these hotlines, like in Los Angeles, where the mayor there said, snitches get rewards, call and tattle on your neighbor. Like, you were part of it. You are the kings, the imaginary kings that you're protesting against. So, pardon my language, but you're full of shit. And this is why none of us care what you think. It doesn't hold, nothing you do on this day holds any weight with us. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little, I guess, my language. Sorry for that word. I know I have a lot of people who don't like that kind of language, so I try and do it sparingly, but they are full of bull hockey or horse pucky, as my grandma would say. So let's look at well, I read that list, right? These things. These are the things, this is real tyranny. Here's a list of all the things you guys supported. This is real authoritarianism. No kings, but all of these things, right? And they are so, I don't know, I don't know if it's low IQ. I don't think it's low IQ. I know that a lot of times cults, they're very high IQ people who join cults sometimes. IQ doesn't prevent you from being pulled into a cult-like belief system. But it does make you, once you're in that cult, the cult makes you stupid, regardless whether you have a high IQ or mid IQ or low IQ. It makes you stupid because everything in that cult is full of thought terminating cliches. It's full of these barriers that they set up to critical thinking to prevent you from thinking about things. And so a lot of times when we interact with leftists, it's hard to have a conversation because you seem oblivious to a lot of basic things. So for example, when I shared that list, there was a leftist who I know who came into my comments and he said, all of these things about the COVID years that's not what No Kings is about. We're not protesting those things. That's not what No Kings is about. And I'm like, yeah, we know. That's the point. We know. Thanks for telling us. That's the point. We're pointing out that when we experienced actual tyranny and authoritarianism, the likes of which we have not seen in this country in a very long time, you guys didn't care. You were part of it. So get out of here with your stupid No Kings commie parade. It's amazing. It's amazing. Here, I'm gonna show you another post that again, they have no introspection, and it's like they can't hear themselves and they can't see themselves. So here's another one. This is a photo from one of the No Kings protests, and you can see that this leftist has a sign that says, "Only cowards wear masks." Only cowards wear masks. Now, this is just astounding. It's amazing to see this. This is a great illustration of their lack of introspection. They don't even, it doesn't even register with them that they're hypocrites. They don't even, you guys are, listen, leftists, you are the mask people. Like, you are the mask people. But they have such a short attention span, I guess, or they're in such delusion constantly that they don't even hear themselves. And so I shared this one, and this one went kind of a little bit wider than most of my posts go. It went further. And so there were lots of people coming into the comments. And this one leftist who again, another one that I know from my old life in LA, she said, just like the other guy, she said, she completely oblivious. She goes, "We're talking about when ICE wears masks." And I'm like, yeah, we know. We know. That's the point. Like, they're like, but we mean when ICE wears it. Yeah, we got that. We got that. That's the whole point. You guys did not say a peep. In fact, most of you were part of enforcing these ridiculous mask mandates. You guys were cool with the great evil of masking children which led to developmental delays for an entire generation of kids. You were okay with that disgusting evil. You were okay with forced masking. You even, like, do you guys remember after a lot of the leftist cities finally removed their stupid mask mandates? These are mandates I did not comply with, by the way. And those of you who've been here for a while, you know that. I kind of tried to have fun with it and be funny about it, but I did not comply with that crap. Do you remember when they removed the mask mandates and there were all these leftists who continued wearing the mask anyway? And many of them, some of them to this day still wear it because it became a cult symbol for them over time. It's like, it's not just tribalism, it's cultish. This was David Hogg, prominent leftist, woke leftist, and he said it out loud, what we all could observe with our own eyes, which was that it had become a cult symbol for them. He said it out loud. He said, I feel the need to continue wearing my mask outside, even though I'm fully vaccinated. That's not going to stop you from getting it. The vaccine, even though I'm fully vaccinated, because the inconvenience of having to wear a mask is more than worth it to have people not think I'm a conservative. Wow. You guys are the mask people. And it's not just COVID. It wasn't just you guys forcing masks on people without ever having read any studies on the efficacy of masks. It's not just you masking children, which was a great evil. It's also your thugs, your jackbooted thugs, your terrorists, your leftist terrorists, Antifa, BLM. These people wear masks all the time. And we've been saying for years, you're cowards. You're hiding your identity while you do terrorism, while you hurt innocent people, while you burn down small businesses, while you loot and terrorize, you wear masks to hide your identity. And so this woman, this leftist I know from my old life, she said, she went on, she explained that she's only against masking in this instance. Only in this instance is it cowardly. Again, you're hypocrites. That's what we're pointing out. You're not consistent. Just like with my body, my choice. You don't believe that. You're not consistent. You're just pro-abortion. And in this case, you're not against masks. You're not against masking. You're cool with it for Antifa, BLM, forcing it on kids, forcing it on the population. You're cool with it. You're cool with the government requiring it. You wanted mask mandates. That's what you wanted. You were cool with the mandates. You're cool with authoritarianism. You're not against masking. You're just against masking in this specific instance. Why? Because you're against ICE. That's it. Just say I'm anti-ICE. Just say you're pro-abortion. But you're liars. Whether you intentionally intend to deceive or you just repeat the slogans that the cult gives you, you are lying. Because you're not anti-masking. Here's what I said to her about ICE. ICE is being currently targeted, doxxed, and their lives are being threatened, and the lives of their wives and children are being threatened by leftist terrorists who you guys are cool with, who you guys won't denounce. You're cool with the terrorists. You're cool with the psychos. You support them. ICE agents, for trying to do their job, are currently being threatened with death by you guys, by leftists. Their families, their wives and children are being threatened, the safety of their families. Now, even though that's the case, I'm still consistent. I actually don't like this trend towards them masking. I don't like it. I don't think they should be masking. What I think instead should be happening is that we should free up funds to provide them with security to all of in their personal lives, figure out ways to enhance their private security at home. And I also think that there should be very stiff legal consequences for people who threaten them or try to dox them. So if some leftist on Reddit is posting where the ICE agents are. They're over here, everybody go here. Or if they're posting their name and address, like a lot of these leftist terrorists are, where they live, the names of their wives and children, if they're posting that kind of stuff, or if they're explicitly threatening their life and saying they'd like to see them dead. I think something like a 10-year prison sentence would probably deter some of that. It would be a deterrent. So I think there should be very stiff penalties for threatening federal officers. But my position on masks is consistent. Yours isn't. You guys are hypocrites yet again. Yet again. And when I asked leftists, I explain my position and that it's consistent. And okay, and so can you explain yours? Why isn't yours? Why didn't you care about forced masking of kids? Why didn't you care about Antifa terrorists and BLM terrorists masking while they committed violence on American citizens? Why didn't you care about that? They just ghost. They don't have an answer. Because they know. At the end of the day, that stupid sign is just about ICE. And we know that. Thanks, Einstein. We got it. Sorry, a little sarcastic today, but I can't believe some of these people. I've got a video to show you as well. I'm going to look at some of the behavior of these people. So they've been doing their hardest. Remember what we call the Summer of Love, where there were all the BLM and Antifa riots, and they were burning down businesses and killing people, including Black business owners, destroying people's livelihoods and in some cases their lives. Remember back then when the media was gaslighting us, the corporate media was lying to us and gaslighting us and calling these things mostly peaceful protests. Well, they've been doing the same things with these No Kings, circuses. And they're like, it's so peaceful. It's so peaceful there. Well, let's look at some of the video of some of the people who attend this kind of clown parade. Can you guys still see me? Somebody in the chat is asking if this is still live. It is. I want to make sure I didn't get taken down. I got taken down on my last video unexpectedly. Davina, are we still live? Let me know, because I'm going to play a video for you. She says it's live. Okay, good. Here we go. So this woman, they found out she is reportedly an elementary school teacher, public school teacher in Chicago. And this is her mimicking the assassination of Charlie Kirk to a Charlie Kirk fan. Here we go. Bang, bang. There it is. She's mimicking a gun to the neck. Bang, bang. One more time. Bang, bang. This woman is entrusted with shaping young minds, the minds of elementary school kids. This is one of those cases where she should be fired immediately. This is a fireable offense. It is against the telos of your career. If your career is to shape young minds, to be trusted with the care of children, and you are exhibiting this kind of extremist, terroristic, violent and psychopathic behavior, you should not be trusted with that specific job. You should not be entrusted with kids. No parent should be asked to trust you with their kids. That's a fireable offense. And it's not just one bad apple. We continually see this from the left. They celebrate murder. They're cool with murder. I did a whole video on this. If you want to go and watch it, it's a series called How the Woke Left is a Cult. And one of those videos is specifically about violence. And myself, as someone who was in that cult for 20 years, it took me a while to see, because I had become so indoctrinated. It took me a while to see that the violence that people in my cult, the leftist cult, were celebrating at the time, it wasn't a bug. It wasn't one bad example. It was the norm. It is a feature of the woke left. I would argue that most of them are like this teacher. They're okay with murder. They celebrate it. I'm going to show you some of the other examples. Let's look at this one. Now, this is the No Kings protest. Who unhinged? He's being described by Eric Darty. He's yelling to the crowd of people, "You got to grab a gun. These ICE agents got to get shot," he says, and wiped out. Again, this is why ICE agents are masking. I don't agree with masking, but this is why. Because you crazy extremist lunatics, you psychopaths on the left, want us all dead. You keep trying to kill us. You keep threatening to kill us. You're psychotic. Some people have been calling this mental illness. I think it's worse than that. I think it's moral illness. If the ones who actually go through with it, the leftists who actually do go out and kill people, like the person who assassinated Charlie Kirk, he's not mentally ill when it comes in a court of law, meaning he knows right from wrong. He knows what's right and he knows what's wrong, and he chooses to do wrong. He chooses to do evil. They're not mentally ill. They are morally ill. These are people who have been overcome with sickness, with a moral sickness, with evil. Here we go. Let's listen to this guy. Typical No Kings protest.
You gotta grab a gun. We gotta turn around the guns on this fascist system. These ICE agents gotta get shot and wiped out. The state machinery, that's a full display right there, has to get wiped out. You gotta grab a gun.
This guy should be arrested immediately. Again, we have to start. You have to see consequences to this kind of behavior. He is inciting violence against federal agents. There should be stiff penalties for this too, not just a fine or misdemeanor. You know, if that guy ended up serving 10 years in prison for telling people to murder ICE agents, it would work as a deterrent. Yes, he's calling for murder. He's actively calling for murder of innocent people. Yeah. Unbelievable. I've got another example. This is how in the woke leftist cult, they train their children. They train them to violence. So I'm sure you guys, if you've been here for a while, you've seen a lot of the videos that leftists like to record their little kids saying really horrible things. Like I've seen videos of their kids calling for the murder of Trump. Kids in a cult. That's what they're being taught by their parents, by their evil parents. Here's an example of that. This is a video of a No Kings protest where they are having their kids stab an effigy of Trump. I cannot imagine being raised by this particular kind of evil if your parents are cool with this. Now, look, he's wearing a mask. There's another guy in the back wearing a mask, of course. Of course. Cultists. And here they are, stabbing Trump.
What the hell?
High five from the dad. It's the cognitive dissonance while they walk around with signs saying hate has no home here, but they are brainwashing their children and training their children into a life of violence and murder. Like they are cool with violence and murder. Back up.
Who the fuck brings their kids here?
Don't start that shit right now.
Circus shit like that.
They village citation. The executive order is now in place.
That woman screaming, this is a typical leftist. Again, this is not like, oh, you found one bad example. No, we know this. We've been watching you guys as you've gotten crazier over the past 10 years. After I left woke, things are so much worse now in your cult than they used to be. You know why? Well, first of all, a lot of the moderates, the actual liberals, have left the cult. A lot of the people who were able to see, like, wait a minute, what is this that I'm in, have left, which means you're just left with the ones who are deeply in it and who are there's something wrong with them, whether you want to call it mental illness or moral illness or both. And when you're in a cult-like environment and anyone who disagrees with a part of it and leaves, and it gets smaller and smaller, your echo chamber, and the acceptable beliefs get smaller and crazier and more strict, and you guys are all going like insane together. Like, you're becoming depraved. And so it's not just this one lady screaming like she's demon possessed. It's like, that's most of you now. That's most of you. I want to watch the rest of this one, and then I've got another video for you.
Get off my land! Get off my land! These are my lands! Get off my land!
He's standing on a public street and screaming, "Get off my land. This is my land." That's not how private property works, sir. Again, these people don't live in reality. They're completely deluded.
I told you, get off my land! These are my land! Get off my land!
But what do you expect from a cult who trains their members to believe, and to at least pretend that they believe, that a man can change his sex and become a woman, or that a woman can change her sex and become a man? Like, they believe these absolutely unscientific, unrealistic things. And so I guess they also believe that if you go out into a public sphere, as a public space, public land, and you say, "This is my land," that suddenly it is your land. Like, oh, I guess it's your land. You said so, dude. Just like you said you're a woman now. Joshua says, they're not simply wrong. They are possessed by evil. You cannot reason with evil. I absolutely agree. That's why I said it's more like a moral illness. There may be, some of them maybe have a mental illness as well, but predominantly it's a moral illness. A lot of them have personality disorders. Personality disorders, cluster B personality disorders in the DSM, they used to be called character disorders. Character, what's that about? That's about your morals, your morality. They have a morality disorder. That's not, in a court of law, that's not like, I don't understand the difference between right and wrong, I'm mentally ill. That's a person who understands the difference between right and wrong, good and evil, and they choose evil. It's their moral compass that's messed up. This is funny. I'm not going to play this video, but this is a woke leftist journalist, let me put that in quotes, Taylor Lorenz, wearing a mask in a recent interview. I think this interview came out like yesterday or something. And I just thought that was funny because, given their whole thing about why would you think it's weird? You're the mask people. Hello. That's what's funny about it. You're suddenly saying masks are for cowards, but only in this instance, only when it comes to ICE, right? You guys are the mask people. I want to show just a little bit more about their violence and their lack of empathy and sympathy. This is a sign that I saw. This woman says, "Which heals faster? Trump's ear or Erica's heart?" Can you just imagine for a second? Like, I know we're so used to seeing stuff like this from the left now, but just take a second and just imagine how dark your heart has to be, how full of evil your heart has to be to to react this way to an attempted murder, an attempted assassination of the president where the bullet clipped his ear, and then the actual like successful assassination of a good and honorable man, Charlie Kirk, and mocking his widow after he was assassinated by your cult, by your leftist cult. Just imagine how dark your heart has to be when you're thinking about like what sign you're going to make for the protests, and you're like, I know, I'm going to make light of the leftist cult, of our tendency towards murder and assassination. I'm going to make light of it. That's just crazy. It's evil. It's so dark. Good grief, says my husband and I wear masks because his brother's going through chemo. Look, I don't, just to be clear, in case anybody's wondering, my position, even during the mask mandate years, has always been, I don't know your situation. I don't know why you're choosing to wear it. You do you, I do me. You know, it's a very much like a liberty-based approach, which is my body, my choice, which is what they say they believe in, but they don't, you know. So when I see someone wearing a mask, unless it's someone like Taylor Lorenz, who I think is a lunatic. She's a known person. She's a public figure. Or David Hogg, who said, I'm going to keep wearing it so they know I'm on the left, right? Like, unless it's someone like that, if it's a person I don't know out in public, I've seen some crazy behavior from people who claim to be on the right where they like yell at people like that, which I think is just as unhinged as them yelling at us for not wearing one during the COVID years. And I would never do that. Like, you choose. I don't know what your situation is. I don't know why you're wearing it or why you think you need to wear it. And, you know, as long as you're not trying to force it on me, we're good. I'm going to read a couple of the super chats before it gets too far along, and then I'll get back to this, and then I'll read the rest of them at the end, just to get through some of these. Thank you so much. John Thomas for $10 says, Keri, for your next Christian panel, the recent split in the Anglican communion and the rejection of the new Archbishop of Canterbury, new group to emphasize sola scriptura, the three creeds. Thank you for this. I don't know anything about this. I will look into it. It sounds like that would be a good subject. Robert Lowry for $10. Hey, what's up, Robert? Thank you for being here. Thanks for the super chat. He says, we need a no stings movement to stop the tyrannical hornets, wasps, and yellow jackets. Don't we? No stings. You know what else? The mosquitoes, and the fire ants. This is what I need. My husband and I've been doing a lot of work in the backyard, and he's been doing the bulk of it, I would say, although I painted the shed and I helped plant a few things, but we're really just remaking the whole backyard. It's going to be great. He's been doing hardscaping. Anyway, I've had fire ants biting me out there, mosquitoes. I got this nasty bite inside my garden glove. I think it was a spider, and anyway, I agree with you. Let's have a no stings movement. Randy Wallen for $10. He says, this S chat is because you said full of SHIT, give it to him. Thank you, Randy. You're putting money in some people put it in the no swears jar or the swear jar. Anyway, you're incentivizing it. I see what you're doing. Thank you. John Thomas for $5. Says, mask during the coup is a false dichotomy. The correct comparison would be Antifa wearing masks. Yes, I agree. When it comes to talking about cowardice, yes, cowardice. I hear what you're saying, and I understand you. The former was totalitarian, and Antifa doing it are terrorists. Yes, the latter is terrorists. I completely agree. That's the appropriate analogy. By the way, John Thomas, they don't even understand what you and I just agreed on. Like, they don't even get it. Randy Wallen for $10. This super chat is because you did not comply. Thank you, dude. Yeah, those years were insane. We lived through all of that, and they were part of it. And I don't get it. They're like, no tyranny, except when we participate in tyranny. And then Randy Wallen for $10. They don't care about intellectual honesty. They lie to amass power. They do. A lot like Islam, where they believe that it's okay to lie. Islam, that it's okay that the ends justify the means. Leftists are like that too. They don't care about intellectual honesty. They lie to amass power. This is true. Once they have it, they will use it. Teachers, doctors, politicians, deep state, all of them, degenerate revolutionaries, be on guard. 100% agree with that. And Andrew Knapp, who's been a member here, you can become a channel member if you want to help support, I think for as little as $1 a month. Andrew Knapp says, behold, the empathetic left, right? Training their kids into violence. That's what they do. So I'm going to look at some of the crazy people who showed up for these protests. So this is actor John Cusack. John Cusack, who blocked me. There's been a number of these leftist celebrities who over the years, I don't mention everyone on Twitter. Sometimes I do if it's a funny one. But I mean, I block people if I don't like them. So I don't care they block. I just think it's funny. I'm like, anyway, he's like, you know what? I can't take this Keri Smith. I must block her. I don't remember what I said to him, but anyway, he blocks a lot of people, of course. And he, the thing about X is that the thing about social media and the advent of everyone using is that in the old days, nobody really knew if the movie stars whose talent they appreciated, nobody really knew if they were insane or not, or if they were evil or not. And that it was kind of, you didn't know everything about their lives. And what you did see was carefully curated. You know, they had PR agents, and it was like profiles and stuff in magazines or pieces about them on television after the advent of television. But it wasn't this sort of access to their innermost thoughts and beliefs that you get through social media with the ones who have no filter, who have no impulse control. And John Cusack is one of those. I don't just think he's morally ill. I think he's mentally ill. I think he has some type of, I don't know, schizophrenia. There's something going on with this dude. He tends to rage post a lot. I would put him in the same basket as Keith Olbermann. Like there's something mentally wrong with both of them, not just morally, mentally. They both rage post a lot. They both don't make a lot of sense. They don't have any impulse control. They don't have any self-control over their posts. You know, there's that Bible verse about be slow to anger and being slow to speak, and they don't. That's like a verse that they should think about a lot. I've had to think about that a lot. I think it would help them the way it's helped me a little bit. But of course, they probably have an extreme bigotry towards anything having to do with Christians or God or Jesus. And so they probably wouldn't pay that any attention. Anyway, actor John Cusack, who says, well, let's just hear him. Let's hear what he says. Of course he was there.
The whole country was founded on no kings.
The whole country was founded on no kings, he says. Well, yes, John Cusack, and that's why we don't have a king. Okay, you crazy person.
This is your city. What do you see happening to your city right now?
Everyone knows the score, right? The authoritarians divide and conquer.
The authoritarians divide and conquer. That's you, John Cusack. You are part of the most authoritarian tribe in this country, which the woke leftists who forced masks on children, who shut down small businesses, who wouldn't allow people go to work, who wanted forced vaccines. You guys are the authoritarians. You were cool with mass censorship of doctors and scientists. You're cool with mutilating and sterilizing kids, and using the government to force complying. Like, you guys are the authoritarians.
They create an other, and then they pick on it, and then pick on.
They create an other, he says. Tell me, what is with all the demonization of anyone who voted for Trump and calling at Trump incorrectly, by the way, calling Trump a fascist, and incorrectly calling everyone who voted for him a fascist, including all these classical liberals? Trump's cabinet's full of liberals, full of former Democrats. Trump himself is a former Democrat and a liberal. You call everyone fascist, you create an other, and then you excuse violence against that other. That's what you do. That's part of your cult. What he's doing right here is characteristic of personality disorders. It's engaging in projection, yes, but it's a specific kind of projection. It's known as DARVO, deny and reverse victim offender. Psychopaths do this, sociopaths do this, cult members do this.
The person and harass them, jail them, and that's all used as a distraction.
Harass them and jail them like you guys try to do to Trump, right? With your trumped up charges, your fake charges.
So they can steal as much as
What about the January 6ers you guys kept in jail for 4 years?
they can, maintain power, right? We all know history, so that's what he's doing. And we have masked goons roaming the streets.
Masked goons. Again, Antifa, BLM, anyone? Anyone?
Hiding their faces, abducting people.
What is the most
Abducting people. What they're doing is enforcing the law. What they're doing is arresting illegal aliens, people who committed a crime, people who crossed the border illegally, and they're focusing on, here's the thing, they're focusing on people with a criminal background. That's what they're doing right now. Those of us who want to see mass deportation, it's not even, there's so many illegals, especially during the Biden years, there's so many people that they allowed to cross, like they're not even going to be able to do that. And so they're starting with the people they think are most dangerous, which are people with criminal backgrounds. And the way you guys are always portraying this as some kind of like, oh, they're coming and abducting people. That's what being arrested is. That's what it is. Imagine if we described murderers that way, like when they arrested Chris Watts for killing his wife and children. Imagine if we were like, they abducted, these people came and abducted Chris Watts and they took him to jail to await trial and they charged him with, like, that's what that is. They were arrested. You could just say arrested. But cults control thought by controlling language. We talked about this a lot. Every cult does this. They come up with new words. Woke Cult does this. I'm not going to belabor the point of all their new words again, but you can go and watch the video about it. They come up with new words. They change the definition of existing words. And so they try to control the way you think about things by changing the language. So for example, when it comes to this issue, they have successfully, and I used to be in the woke cult when we were pushing this. We used to harass journalists. We used to harass the AP and try to get them to stop using the correct phrase illegal alien and to instead replace it with undocumented American, which is crazy. Why would you do that? They're not Americans. They're not citizens. Why would you do that? It's to change the way the public thinks about it slowly over time. And he's doing that right here. They do this by, instead of saying, oh, they're arresting illegal aliens, they're saying they're abducting undocumented Americans. Oh my gosh, that sounds so much worse, right? Why are they abducting people? Sorry. Boosh. Hey, Boosh. He says Ministry of Truth, Keri. Yep. Straight out of 1984. That's their guidebook. It is. Well, except they haven't read a lot of the things that they believe in or that they push or they haven't. For example, most of them push Marxist beliefs that you can trace directly to Marxist academics and philosophers, but they themselves have not read these Marxists. It's just passed down and it's taught to them, almost like people who say they're Christians but have never actually read the Bible, but they do know they've learned through osmosis some of the things that are in the Bible. It's like that. These people have learned Marxism, but they haven't actually read Marx. And it's the same with a lot of the books they quote. They like to pretend. Like, remember the first time Trump was elected? A lot of them were posting pictures of like, we better read 1984. It's going to tell us what Trump is going to do. Well, they didn't read 1984. These people don't read. They don't read Orwell for the most part. There are exceptions, of course, like with anything. I'm saying on average, these people don't read. I know this from having conversations with them. They don't know anything you're talking about. If I say, well, this is like an Animal Farm, they're like blank stare. They don't know. Yeah, it is like Animal Farm. Rules for thee, but not for me. Andrew Knapp for $20. Thank you, Andrew. He says, we were not formed on the idea of no kings. We were formed on no taxation without representation. That's true. He's got a correction there from Mr. Cusack. These are mob rule Democrats, and 51% can be every bit as tyrannical as a despot. It's true. Thank you very much, Andrew. Oh, my husband's in the chat. What's he saying? That's one of my favorite movies. I'm not sure which movie he's talking about. I can't stay. I can't stay. If I get too far in the chat, I won't get through these videos. So let me show you this one. This one is, pardon the language, but I really like this Twitter user. I don't know them personally. I think it's a man, but who knows? The unmitigated ass. Very, aside from the funny name, very astute Twitter user who I started following a while ago. And I think it's a he, said, this is church for them, right? He's talking about the woke left. And not like real church, more like a social club. It's ersatz, and they know it, and they like it that way. And here's the video he's talking about. And this is one of the videos. Let me play just a tiny bit of the music. I don't want to get a strike for this, but they're all dancing. They've got their signs, and here we go. Who did this song? It's a song that's like, there ain't no kings in the USA. Yeah, we know that. There are no kings. Once again, so why are you protesting? So somebody, did AI make this song, or is there somebody tell me in the chat, is there a real singer who made this song, or did they use AI to create this? I need to know. I need to know. Anyway. This is like church for them. It does serve that role for them. There's a hole in their life. And I think it's because, of course, I would think this, and those of you who are not believers, you may have heard me say this before, and you know where I'm coming from. We don't agree on this, but that's okay. I believe human beings, we were designed to worship, because I believe we were designed by a loving creator who made us in his image, and we were designed to worship. My pastor, Bradley Helgerson at the Church on the Square, he has done several sermons on this, and really made the case that rather than Homo sapien, it would be better to call us Homo liturgus, which is man who worships. Like, instead of man who thinks, it's man. Instead of the Descartes' idea of like I think therefore I am, it's I worship therefore I am, or I adore therefore I am. Because I believe this is true for a number of reasons. The foremost of which is because if I look at human behavior, if I observe it, I see that in myself and in everyone around me. Pretty much, you can see through people's behavior what we adore, what we worship, what we put in that space, right? And if we don't put God in that space, if we don't worship God, I think we have a tendency to fill that space with other things that we worship. And so for a lot of leftists, not all of them, but for a lot of leftists, they put the government in that space. They do worship the government as much as they say they're against authoritarianism. We know from their behavior that's not true. They support authoritarianism. Once again, they were cool with lockdowns, forcing vaccines, forcing masking, shutting down businesses, like censoring the government, Biden's three-letter agencies, the federal government, taking meetings with Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and censoring, which all of those big social companies have now admitted happened. They're cool with that kind of censorship coming from the federal government. They worship the government. Why? Well, I think because they don't have God in that rightful place in their life. And we are made to worship, and they need something to put all of that kind of religious faith in. And they put it in government because they want government. They worship power. Ultimately, they worship power, the power to control others. That's at the center of woke ideology. That's why all of their new definitions have the word power in them. When they redefine racism to mean prejudice plus power, they put power at the center. That's what they want. They say sexism is prejudice plus power. When a woke person dies, they don't say rest in peace. They say rest in power, which tells you a lot about what they elevate, like what they worship. They're all about political power. And so that's why I think they tend to worship the state, because they want to use the power of the state to enforce their will on everyone. It's funny that they're always talking about people, how again with projection and Darvo, they're always accusing Christians of like wanting to use the government to wield power over them, but that's true of them actually. And they effectively do use the government to wield to enforce their woke religion. They do. This is why you see all of these laws they've been pushing to try and use the power of the state to take children away from their parents if the parents don't participate in a delusion about what their sex is, like that they can change sex. They want the government to have the right to take your kids away. They want the government to have the right, the power of the state to, from your pocketbook and my pocketbook, to take money from taxpayers to pay to mutilate and sterilize little children. This guy who's probably this commie, this very open, blatant communist socialist in New York who's about to become mayor, Mondami, he wants the taxpayer to be forced to pay for sterilizing and mutilating kids. So they worship the power of the state. And this video that we just watched of them dancing the street, this is a kind of ritual for them. They have all of their own rituals and liturgy, their sacred texts, their sacred words and phrases, and that for them is kind of like, because they don't go to church and they're not a part of a church family and they don't get that sort of community, this is church for them. This is community for them. And I'm not saying that part of it is a bad, like they're having fun dancing with their friends. That's great. That's one of the less, like that's not an alarming part of what they're doing. I'm just observing, I think correctly, that this is part of their worship. I've got another one. Well, this is just a takeaway from someone who did go to observe. Amber Jo Cooper on X, she says, most folks have already cleared out of the No Kings rally in DC. So these were her top takeaways having been there. Number one, it felt more like a Halloween costume parade versus a political protest. So many inflatables. This is true. Again, that's part of the worship part. I think they're having fun and community, and this is like them going to church. Like they're getting to see their fellow people who are in their belief system, in their religion, and they're, we're going to get dressed up and like a party. So that makes sense to me. She says, we asked, how is Trump a king? If he was elected, got a lot of blinking, not a lot of real answers. Let me just pause it there for a second. It's something I neglected to mention at the beginning, which I should have. These people, once again, they're calling Trump a king, even though he was elected. He won the popular vote. He won the electoral vote. He won the battleground states. He has a mandate. Overwhelmingly, a ton of liberals came out to vote for him. We wanted him. And they're calling him a king, even though he was elected by a majority of the population, even though he was completely outspent by his political opponent and the machinery of the Democrats. He still won. He was elected by the people. We put him in that role. We did, the people. They call him a king, and yet they are the party that did not even allow a primary vote. They appointed, like a king, Kamala Harris. They had a coup. They appointed their candidate with no election. Their party didn't get to have a say. She was given to them, appointed by the elite. Here's your candidate. That's incredible. That's pretty incredible. And they're okay with it. Once again, they're okay with tyranny. Flags and signs included Palestine, Antifa, Ukraine, BLM, Pride, but mostly American, with a few upside down. Not many people could explain how their lives, this is important. Not many people could explain how their lives have personally changed since Trump took office. Mostly they would deflect to things that they've quote unquote seen. This is so true. I was talking about this with my husband. If you ask them, if you know leftists, and we do know some, and some who we really like, but if you ask them, like, what is it that you really oppose? And they don't give you anything you can look up or any answer. There's nothing. They can't point to any policy. Usually, I would say 99% of the time, they can't point to any executive order, any statement, any quote, anything. They just will say things like, well, have you seen what Trump is doing? And I'm like, well, give me an example. What do you mean? Well, I can't believe you haven't seen it. Have you seen what, it's like, give me something based in reality that we can talk about. Give me a link, give me a study, give me a policy that you don't like, a specific law, give me an executive order, something, even a quote, something he said. And they can't give you any examples. And a lot of times they will do, if you ask them this, how have you been personally affected by Trump in office? And they'll say, I hear ISIS abducting children. Like, they'll say these things and you're like, well, where did you hear that? Where can I look that up? Do you have anyone with personal knowledge of this? No, never. So try this with your friends who are still in the lab. See what they say. If they give you something based in reality, like, here is a bill I don't like, or here is a quote he said, then you can talk about it. Then you can, that's something specific. But most of the time they don't know anything. They can't give you anything. Protesters are mostly scared of losing rights. This one is crazy. Voting, same-sex marriage, etc. So when I ask them, and they will even, beyond this, losing rights, they will say they've lost their rights. Leftists will say this. This is a delusion. This is not based in reality. They will say Trump has been taking away people's rights. Whose rights? They can't tell you. They don't have an example because it's not true. Well, he's taken away women's rights. How? Give me an example. They can't tell you. They don't have an example because it's not true. He's not taking away women's rights. What are you talking about? Well, these are delusions. I actually had a leftist say to me, he said, well, I have friends who I work with who are citizens who are afraid they're going to be deported. They were born here and they're citizens and they're afraid they're going to be deported. And I'm like, well, that's just crazy though. That's not based in reality. And if you have friends who have that fear, I understand it because they unfortunately are the target of millions, if not billions of dollars worth of propaganda from corporate media, politicians, the entertainment industry, K through 12, academia, all of this propaganda geared at putting them in a state of fear and filling them full of things that are not true. And so I feel for them because it's not entirely their fault, but the reality is that's not sane. That's not rational. If you have a friend who's a citizen who was born here and they're like, I'm afraid I'm going to be deported. I'm saying this with sincerity. They need mental health care because that's irrational and it's histrionic and it's not based in reality. It's delusional. They need mental health care. Unfortunately, the majority, as you guys know, if you're here regularly, the majority of therapists and psychiatrists are also a part of this cult. In fact, the APA itself is a part of this cult, the American Psychiatric Association. They were co-opted by the woke. They started putting out all these woke directives, instructing therapists and psychiatrists to talk with their male patients about their male privilege and their toxic masculinity. That's a woke cult belief. They started putting out all this stuff about talk to your patients about their white privilege. That's crazy. So the majority of people who are in that field are themselves a part of the cult, and that's not going to help if you have crazy cult beliefs. I do know of like a small network of conservative, reality-based therapists, people who, some of them classical liberals, they're not in the woke cult. Let's just put it that way. There's a whole range of people not in the woke cult. I know of a few of them. If you need a referral, drop a note in the comments. Let me know. I will put you in touch with one of these people. And if they can't help you, they can refer you to someone who can, who's a therapist or a psychiatrist who's not in that cult. But you do need some kind of mental health care. If you think it's kind of like the delusion that a lot of people in that cult, a leftist cult, were saying when Trump got elected that he's going to put gay people in camps, which is crazy. You need mental health care if you believe that. It's not entirely your fault, but you've been gaslit, you've been brainwashed, and I hope you talk to somebody. Dan Trainer, we desperately need Trump derangement syndrome health centers. We do, right? It's afflicting a lot of people. One other just a funny little bit about this. Amber Joe says, mostly everyone said Democrats should not end the shutdown. And then they also said, she says it smelled like the entire crowd skipped deodorant today. It reeked. I believe it. Here's some of the pictures that she took, and you can smell some of them. Like, look at this guy. Like, you can smell these pictures. My goodness. Okay. I think I'm gonna wrap it up here. I want to share. There's so many things we could talk about when it comes to this, but I don't want this video to be too long. So let me end with a joke. The Babylon Bee, Kyle Mann, the Babylon Bee. These guys are the best. They're what the Onion used to be. They're better than the Onion. And I used to love the Onion until it also went woke. And when you go woke, you lose your sense of humor. Anyway, these guys are so funny. And he says, I have fired the writer who penned this Babylon Bee article since the bee is supposed to be satire, which itself is funny. It's a joke. And it's a picture of the No Kings protest, and it says, millions gather to express total ignorance about political system. And he's right. It's not just a joke. It's the truth, actually. It's darkly funny, but it's also true. Actually, wait a minute. I've got one more. I do want to show you this. I'm closing down these tabs I had open, and I saw this one, and this one is just, this is perfect to end on. This is a video my friend, comedian Chrissy Mayer, shared, and she says, this is leftists in a nutshell. And
why is that? I don't know.
This is a young guy who, now there was not a lot of young people there. These protests are mostly old people, but this was one of the young woke people who showed up. And so let's listen to why he's there.
Trump's a bitch.
Yeah, why is that?
I don't know. He's just, we don't like him. That's the word around here.
Any particular reason why you don't like him?
No clue at all. I'm just going with everybody else saying. Trump's a bitch.
Yeah, why is that?
I don't know. He's just, we don't like him. That's the word around here.
Any particular reason why you don't like him?
No clue at all. I'm just going with everybody else saying.
I have to hand it to that kid. At least he was honest. At least he's not lying. Like most of them lie and they pretend they have reasons, and they don't. They don't have any reasons. They can never point to anything, but they pretend they do. They have you not seen, that kind of stuff. At least he's honest and is like, I don't know. I just know we hate him. Yes, thank you. At least he's honest. I gotta respect that. I do respect that. So I don't know. Why do you hate him? Why are you here? I don't know. We just do. Thank you, sir. That just makes me laugh. It's so good. Okay. Yeah, I low-key respect that. Me too. Like, I would hang out with that guy because at least he's got honesty. I like that. Oh man. Okay. Thank you guys for being here. Hope you had, as I said, I hope you had a great weekend. We have a fun show coming up for you on Wednesday, a new pop culture episode live with Mystery Chris and some special guests. And it's going to be airing. We're trying this new thing where we've been airing them we do them at 7 a.m. Central and 7 p.m. Central on Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central instead of 8 p.m. So 7 p.m. It's an hour earlier than we usually do. And we tried this out and people seem to like it. So 7 p.m. on Wednesday Central Time, we're doing a video about the war on rock and roll. And if you've never seen a pop culture episode, I see some of you in the chat who have and who are always there having fun with us. It's a real different kind of thing. My friend Mystery Chris is brilliant, and he is like an encyclopedia of cultural history, and he always finds the most amazing clips, historical clips, to show us videos, and we do deep dives on different cultural topics. The algorithm doesn't like it. It's never anything that's like in the news right now. It's always some historical topic. And so we're going to talk about the advent of rock and roll and cultural attitudes towards rock and roll, cultural and political responses to the popularity of rock and roll starting in the 50s and 60s. And we got some great clips pulled, and we're going to keep it to 2 hours, and we're going to have some special guests. So including my husband, who's a musician, Anthony Garcia. You can find him on YouTube at Anthony Garcia Music. And I hope, let me see if he's responded yet. Oh, he hasn't answered yet. There's somebody else I asked who I hope oh yes, he said yes. Nick Weiser. Mr. Nick Weiser is going to be there as well. So I hope you'll join us. We're going to have a fun time. I'll see you then. Thanks so much. Thanks for the super chats. Thanks for the funny comments in the chat. And I'll see you on Wednesday, 7 o'clock Central. Take care.